Coming up, Lily Gladstone stars in Fancy Dance, and she's sharing the screen with another Indigenous actor getting high acclaim. We talk to both of them. On this week's IndigiPolitics, Representative Tom Cole easily wins his GOP primary election. Plus, perpetuating the Ojibway language is at the forefront of a new Bush Fellows goal. Next on the ICT Newscast.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
Support for the ICT Newscast with Lily Chavez comes from the Arizona PBS studios in Phoenix at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communications at Arizona State University.
Amida Hopa, thank you for joining us. I'm Aaliyah Chavez. Summer is in full swing, but epidemiologist Dean Seneca is warning tribal communities to stay vigilant against various diseases. As he told ICT, COVID cases are in a slight increase when more people are seeking heat relief and air conditioning. This and other diseases attack the most vulnerable. However, there's an easy thing we can all do.
Water is the secret trick. I mean, staying hydrated is key to fighting many infectious diseases. Water is life. You know, I had a native traditional healer tell me that once. And, you know, when you're a young scientist, you're like, yeah, you don't really realize it. But a couple things. One is you really are what you eat. So whatever you put into your body, you know, you're going to spit out of your body. You know, so, you know, what I tell young people is put good things in your body and good things will happen to you. You know, have a good mind, because when you have a good mind, you do good things.
We turn now to hockey, where Mohawk player Brandon Montour and the Florida Panthers have won the Stanley Cup. The Panthers' 2-1 win over the Oilers in Game 7 of the National Hockey League Finals is the first championship for the franchise in the team's 30-year history. The achievement marks the second year in a row that the Stanley Cup is headed back to First Nation lands after the Las Vegas Golden Knights and Sioux Valley, Dakota hockey player Zach Whitecloud brought the trophy home in 2023. Well, despite little progression, American Indian and Alaska Natives living in tribal communities continue to have the lowest rates of high-speed internet access in the nation. According to the Computer and Internet Use in the United States 2021 report released last week, from 2016 to 2021, the digital divide between tribal and non-tribal households decreased from a gap of 10% to 6%. Tribal residents in the states of Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Hawaii, Wisconsin, and Washington reported broadband rates at or above the national average of 90% in 2021. However, tribal residents in Arizona, Connecticut, and New Mexico had among the nation's lowest rates, with a range of less than 60 to 70%. Tribal youth are 3 times more likely to be put behind bars than their non-tribal peers, according to a report from the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. Last year, Montana's Fort Peck Reservation declared a state of emergency due to a big uptick in juvenile violence and crime. That's when teacher Tressa Welch saw how her students needed a safe place to hang out after school. So when she left teaching, she started a business that welcomes teenagers as employees or gives them a space to be themselves.
My goal for the kids is to have a place that's affordable to them, and a space, so they can come and talk to me if they ever needed an outlet, you know, whether it's finances, whether it's just for some therapy, you know, whether it's for motivation. Like, I'll be here for them whenever they need me.
T&K Untamed Boutique officially opened in February and has had positive reviews.
President Joe Biden and Donald Trump will have their first debate. But is it worth the airtime in an age of social media where voters know in real time where candidates stand on issues? And Representative Tom Cole had a resounding win against a self-funded candidate who spent millions. Here to talk about all of this and more is regular contributor Michael Stopp. He is president and CEO of 7 Star Holdings for this week's IndigiPolitics. Welcome back to the newscast, Michael.
Thanks, Polly. It's great to be here.
While we can only speculate, what are some of the questions or issues that you think will come up?
Well, we know some of the policy issues are absolutely going to be the border. We know that inflation is going to be an issue. What's the economy? How are the American people responding to the economy today? What's the jobs outlooks? What are we spending? Everybody's feeling it in the pocketbook when they go to the grocery store. Whose policies are going to have the best effect on that? Who's going to be believed in those policies? We have a lot of foreign affairs going on right now with the Middle East and with Russia. Lots of concerns there. I've no doubt there'll be some questions on foreign policy. But I also expect, whether or not the moderator allows it, that we're going to have a lot of personal attacks either on both sides. Obviously, the Biden campaign cannot leave on the table the option to go after former President Trump on his felony conviction last month. We're still waiting to hear what the sentencing is going to be, but that's a big piece. And I assume that President Biden is going to take every chance he can to remind voters of that and what that means for America to have a convicted felon put into office. I think that Donald Trump is going to talk about Hunter Biden, and I think that he's also going to talk about a lot of President Biden's missteps. The age issue, you see a lot of communication issues and memory problems with the president. I think those personal attacks are going to be filtered into almost every answer that they give. And as we've seen in the past, moderators have a hard time controlling the stage. That isn't an open seat. You're now having, for the first time in a very long time, I'm going to say since television, you have two former presidents on the stage. Two former presidents who both very strong personalities, and I imagine that any moderator is going to have a hard time keeping control.
And are presidential debates important considering all the ways that information is shared these days? What's your perspective?
Right. So we know that Donald Trump didn't go to any of the primary debates because he didn't feel like it was necessary. That in fact, that he chose to engage with the electorate in a different manner and didn't think the debates were at this time. We've seen the presidential debate group actually become almost non-existent and not relevant this year, especially. And there are only 2 debates scheduled currently that both candidates have agreed to. And so the question is, do we see a need for the debates? I don't know that you're going to win any voters at the debate. I think really both candidates need to have more of a concern of losing voters. I can't help but go back to one of the first televised debate between Richard Nixon and John F. Kennedy. And everybody believed that, Richard Nixon had the background in policy, but John F. Kennedy had the young look. And at the time, Richard Nixon looked old. And compared to the two, that visual effect played a big role in that presidential election. There's a chance at this time that we're going to see something similar. You see 2 very elderly gentlemen going on the debate stage. The question is going to be, how are they going to perform? Can President Biden keep up for that long? We haven't seen him engage at this level. We saw him at the State of the Union. He did fairly well at the State of the Union. He had a couple missteps, but not terribly. That was not in as rigorous an environment as a debate would be. So that's going to be telling. Donald Trump has a hard time staying on message. He tends to go off on rabbit trails as well. So I think more than likely we're going to see the downside of the candidates more than we're going to see a reason to vote for a candidate in this case. And as you mentioned, the policy issues have already been well documented. And there are other ways to get those messaging out. I think with these 2 debates, what we're going to see is basically how the American people are going to perceive their president. Who's going to come across as presidential and who's going to come across as your crazy old uncle, I guess.
And if you look at the numbers from last week's election in Oklahoma for Representative Tom Cole's seat, it kind of looks like he really didn't have a contender. But there was another candidate, Paul Bondar, who spent over $4 million running it against Tom Cole. And so, with the resounding win Cole had last week, what does this say about Oklahoma's District 4 and the voters there?
I think it says as much about the voters as it does about Tom Cole. Mr. Bondar tried to paint Tom Cole as an out of touch, entitled politician who basically is a DC swamp rat. But the people from District 4 know better than that. They know who Tom Cole is. Tom Cole works with his constituents. He's been in office more than 20 years, and he hasn't been lost in the DC swamp. He is up there, and he does work for his constituents, but they know that. And when he comes home, he spends time with them. He's the only member of Congress that I'm aware of that when he does town halls, he stays until every question is answered. He doesn't put himself on a clock. He allows himself all the time that is needed so everyone can go in and get their questions answered. And whatever you may think of the man, you have to give him respect for that. He's been known to do 5-6 hour town halls in Norman, taking questions from all areas and all spectrums and addressing them in a respectful manner. And people take that to heart. There has always been the concern that the far right in the Oklahoma primaries is going to start pushing out some of the more moderate Republicans, or the more establishment Republicans is what I like to call them, because our primaries are so conservative, and quite frankly, the turnout is fairly low compared to Republican turnout in November at the general election. And so we had not seen in the past a far right candidate like Mr. Bondar was, who was supported by Roger Stone and General Michael Flynn, come in with the kind of resources he did. He spent millions of dollars. I spend a lot of time in Tom Cole's district. He has Norman and Southern Oklahoma City and more, and I have an office there. And so I was getting inundated with ads on the radio, on TV, digitally. I'd seen him use digital ads in ways that hadn't been used before. And most likely because they're so hard to target when it comes to a primary race. The general idea in a primary race is you want to target those voters who are going to be there. This guy just did a blanket to raise his awareness. And there was real concern that Tom would be in trouble. But if you listen to Tom talk, he was never worried about it. He said his constituents know him. He's been there. He has great relationships across the district. And sure enough, he was right. That came out, and it was proven that that's what it was. His relationship and his work as a representative is what the people of the 4th District wanted.
Well, Michael, that's all the time that we have for this week's IndigiPolitics. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Polly.
Perpetuating Native language is important, and now one Ojibway woman will deepen her knowledge through a recently received Bush Fellowship. ICT's Shirley Sneve has this interview with Michelle Goose, who started the conversation introducing herself in her native language.
Buju Junia Ko Indigenous, Makwen Dudem, Kazagasqua Jamaica and Dunjaba, Nigi Kino Mage, Nagajo Nangabe Kindaswigamigong.
What will your sabbatical encompass?
Well, I'm hoping to do a lot of curriculum writing work to try to expand my program at the tribal college, and then also reaching out to other programs and hopefully collaborating on some work that other organizations are doing. And then I'd also want to travel, connect with other Indigenous language programs to see what I can learn from them to bring back home to my language efforts.
Why is language important to you?
It's a big part of my identity as an Ojibwe person. And I believe that's true for all Indigenous people, that our languages are a big part of who we are, and that the language holds the keys to understanding, deeper understandings of culture and of our identity. My journey with the language, it's really helped me to be a more confident person, and to take more risks and take advantage of more opportunities than I maybe would have without the language. Like, I don't think I would have ever thought to apply for the Bush Fellowship if I wasn't involved in language work. It's kind of been a lifelong journey for me. So I was interested when I was a kid because I heard grown-ups and elders kind of using words here and there. So I was interested in it, and I would ask them questions like how to say words, and then didn't really have it in elementary school. There weren't many learning opportunities. But then in high school, we had language classes that were just kind of like basic language classes. And we had a language quiz bowl club that I participated in. So that really sparked my interest. And I decided when I went to college, I wanted to really focus on learning Ojibwe.
Languages need to make sense in everyday society. So how does that work for you?
My daughter, I've been trying to raise her as a bilingual Ojibwe speaker, and just kind of trying to do that and realizing how much more English there is. Like, she loves watching little videos of songs and like some of the kid YouTube influencers, and there just aren't really options like that for Ojibwe. So everything that's in English is like really well done and more interesting than the Ojibwe, the limited Ojibwe videos there are on YouTube. So having like mainstream media like Avengers dubbed into like Lakota or Ojibwe would be really, really impactful. It legitimizes the language, normalizes it for the children.
Nitsika tai gitsi. Nitsika tai gitsi means I feel the good in what you've done. Nitsika tai gitsi. Nitsika tai gitsi. I feel the good in what you've done.
Oscar-nominated actress Lily Gladstone, who we just heard there, gives another powerful performance in the new film Fancy Dance alongside breakout star Isabel Deroy-Olsen. The movie, which is rated R and streaming soon on Apple TV, follows an aunt who kidnaps her niece after her mother has gone missing, all in hopes of making it to the powwow for healing. ICT's Paris Wise spoke with the duo about this gripping tale and their experience working on this project.
So Lily, your character is Jax, and Isabel, your character is Roki. And I think the most beautiful thing about their relationship is their ability to laugh and smile through these really difficult and unknown situations. How did you build that trust with each other?
I mean, as Indigenous people, comedy is so central to our culture and our community. And so getting to play those moments was so fun. And, building that trust together was really, really easy. It was immediate, and we just felt so comfortable. Mm-hmm. And, our first day on set, our second scene, I think, as soon as they said cut, we would be quoting Willow and laughing together, and they would have to talk over us and say, okay, we're rolling now. And, those moments of joy and laughter are really mirrored in the film. We really see a lot of ourselves in it too. And, it was just fun.
I'm so glad, because there is some tension that starts to grow between the characters. Isabel, how did you make that switch from your innocence of not really knowing what's going on to then starting to test Jax?
Throughout the film, we see Roki's coming of age, and we see her step into womanhood, and especially when she gets her first moon, that's really a turning point for her. She's really stepping into herself. And she's starting to realize, oh, I can do things. I know what I'm doing, and I'm allowed to question things, because she's constantly learning from the women around her, especially Jax. And, that's better or worse, So those moments of kind of stepping into her own come with those questions and those kind of uncertainties of the situation she's in, but she's very resourceful, and she holds her own, and it's really beautiful to watch.
Lily, what was it like to work with Erica, as this was her directorial debut for a feature film, and your
Mhm.
character had so many layers and a lot of times, just had to keep pushing forward and push past everything that she might be feeling in those moments?
Yeah, Erica just immediately was somebody I knew I wanted to work with again and again. We did the short Little Chief. She's a tremendously talented writer, and she and Michiana worked so well together for the feature as well. It was a joy to be introduced to Michiana's work. But Erica, she stays true in her direction to the writing, and the writing is so layered, so lived in. It's the kind of script as an actor, when you get it, you just are so excited to get your hands on it and start making it, because there's not a wasted beat. Everything is imbued with a much deeper and more expansive meaning than at face value, yet it functions within a scene for the exact given circumstances of what these characters are going through. It's always speaking to the micro and the macro at the same time. So really, when you have a script that's so tightly written, your job is to just not get in its way and help it sing when it's on its feet. Because it is oftentimes you will find a piece of writing that's brilliant on the page, but for some reason is just not finding legs and it's not shooting. But this is one of those projects that it was very clean from page to screen. It feels like the same project. It just feels like it was, one of those three-dimensional sort of cutouts that just took us all lifting it up, and then suddenly you had the vision of it all, and it was just there. So Erica tracking the writing that she and Michiana had worked on as a director throughout, it was just about keeping the through line, touching base, also just keeping a finger on the pulse of what is this balance, that you were talking about, of Jax raising her niece, of Jax keeping Roki, because Jax needs Roki to have that hope. She needs her to have the belief that her mom's coming back. And really outside of what Roki witnesses, her mom's patterns, it doesn't feel too out of the norm initially. Jax maybe knows before Roki does, but Roki figures it out pretty quickly. So maintaining that world, maintaining some sense of normalcy as everything's falling apart, and then just doing so in the moment. Erica describes when she makes something, when she's creating something, she allows each step to evolve in a very organic way. And that's such a gift as an actor, because then you're not trying to fill in and color in these big pushes or these big plot jumps. And it was really just as a director, keeping our pulse on what the heartbeat of the writing was. And yeah, she's very effective.
Mhm. Well, it must have been so helpful to, be working with someone who maybe firsthand understands, coming from a community who understands a lot of these issues portrayed in the film. And you had some awesome castmates as well, Ryan Begay and Crystal Lightning. What was it
Yes.
like working with them as well?
I mean, I had worked with Crystal on Three Pines, so we already knew each other. So it was like, it's lovely to see other Indigenous actors doing so well. Like, there's so much space in the industry for us. It's just about getting there and opening the door. And I feel like that's what this film really is doing.
And Crystal and Ryan came in just loaded with, the characters are supporting characters, but they were so fully fleshed. I understood who Jax was because of what they brought to the scenes that we did together. It's like I got a sense immediately in working with Ryan of what our sibling dynamic was, which is very convenient that it's a criminal and a cop as well. And great way to play out that conversation about jurisdictional, like, tribal police's hands being tied in a lot of cases. The immediate, like, I adore Crystal. She's such a dynamite performer. Getting to know her on set and just finding this immediate sort of chemistry the two of us had, and just joy. She's such an incredibly talented performer. Both of them are. I want to see them in everything.
Yeah. And, those, similarly to how you said that they really informed Jax's character, I feel like the same goes for Roki. You know, throughout the film, we're just shown how much everybody cares for this kid, you know, and there's a beat with you and Crystal talking about Roki, and there's a beat between, you know, Ryan and I, and there's that, you know, uncle relationship there, and it's just so fun, and it's so full of love, and I really appreciate that little moment with him being like, be quiet, you know, like,
Stay up too late.
yeah, don't stay up too late. It really reminds me of my own family, and it made it feel like home.
I definitely got the sense of those relationships and that comfortability, and I'm so excited for our audience to see the film and your beautiful performances. Isabel Deroy-Olsen and Lily Gladstone, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You can watch Fancy Dance now in select theaters and stream it on Apple TV starting June 28th. That is a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.